They assume Avery's connection to my grandfather will make him overcompensate, eager to seem impartial, maybe even leaning in their favor just to avoid any hint of bias. What they don't grasp is that true neutrality was grandfather's highest creed, one he would have demanded from anyone worthy of his mentorship. "Very well," Avery says, giving a small nod. "Opening statements, Mr. Dale." Dale buttons his jacket and strides toward the bench. "Your Honor, this case is simple," he begins. Judge Franklin Cole was a respected jurist and a cherished member of this community. But in his later years, after the passing of his wife June, he came under the undue influence of his granddaughter, the defendant. He gestures in my direction without meeting my eyes. Miss Wright exploited an elderly man whose mental faculties were in decline, convincing him to divert a substantial estate away from his only child, Celeste Wright, and her husband, Gavin, who would, under normal circumstances, be the rightful heirs. The words cut through the air, aimed squarely at my character. I focus on my breathing, the way grandfather taught me during my first mock trial back in high school. In, hold, out. The truth will speak for itself. Amelia squeezes my wrist once before rising from her chair. When she speaks, her voice carries the soft melody of Georgia, wrapped around the precision of 20 years before the Supreme Court. "Your Honor, the plaintiff's account overlooks 3 decades of proven history." She moves forward, calm but deliberate. Judge Cole revised his will 10 years ago, at a time when his mind was sound, as his physician will confirm. The plaintiffs, Celeste and Gavin Wright, abandoned their daughter, my client, when she was just 4 months old, leaving her to be raised by Judge Cole and his wife, June. She pauses, letting the silence do its work. 3 decades of love and presence outweigh the words of those who chose absence. This case isn't about manipulation. It's about recognizing what defines family. The ones who stay, stay. The word lingers between us. I keep my gaze forward, refusing to look at the parents who never stayed through a fever, a recital, or a single graduation. The parents who now want what grandfather built, what he intentionally left to me. I think of the countless Sunday afternoons on the porch swing, grandfather and I watching neighborhood children toss baseballs to their fathers while I tried to ignore the ache in my chest. I think of grandmother June's gentle hands braiding my hair before school, teaching me how to bake her lemon poppy seed cake, tending to her hibiscus garden that burst into crimson every summer. They stayed. For 32 years, they chose me every single day, and now it was my turn to defend that choice. That love, against the blood ties that had proven thinner than water. The battle for my grandfather's legacy, and my own, had begun. The heavy oak doors creaked open as court reconvened after lunch. Mother reapplied her lipstick, the same coral shade she'd worn in the only photo she ever sent me, on my 16th birthday. Father adjusted his tie, those perfectly manicured fingers belonging to a man who'd never once braided my hair or wiped my tears. Amelia slid a manila folder across the table. "They filed financial statements claiming your grandfather abandoned your mother financially." My fingertips brushed the folder's edge. "He sent them money for 22 years. Exactly $3,200 each month." Amelia's eyes gleamed, the quiet confidence of someone holding a royal flush. $845,000 in total. I have the canceled checks and bank statements. Richard Dale strode to the front like a game show host, confidence spilling from his pinstripe suit. "Your Honor, we'd like to present evidence of Judge Cole's deteriorating mental state over the last decade." Judge Avery nodded. "Proceed." Dale gestured toward a stack of papers. "We have testimony indicating Judge Cole grew increasingly confused about his finances and family relationships." My jaw tightened until my molars ached. My grandfather was reviewing Supreme Court cases the week before he died, debating constitutional law over Sunday roast days before his heart gave out. "Furthermore," Dale continued, "we believe Miss Wright exercised undue influence over her grandfather, isolating him from his daughter." Mother dabbed delicately at her eyes with that monogrammed handkerchief. The Cole family crest, 3 oak leaves symbolizing strength, longevity, and wisdom, mocked her performance from its embroidered corner. Amelia rose, calm and composed. "Your Honor, if I may, we've prepared documentation that tells quite a different story." She approached the bench, opening a leather binder. These are June Cole's journals, spanning 30 years. Each entry carefully records visits promised by the plaintiffs that never occurred. The courtroom murmured, a sound like dry leaves stirring. Amelia turned to a marked page. December 18th, 1998, she read. Celeste promised to visit for Christmas. Bought Mackenzie that red bicycle she wanted in case her mother asks what she'd like. Wrapped Celeste's gift for the 4th Christmas she's missed. Mother's face hardened, marble smooth and pale. And this, Amelia said, lifting another thick folder, contains Judge Cole's call logs, dozens of highlighted attempts to reach Mr. Wright about school events, medical emergencies, and graduations. None returned. She sets a photo album on the evidence table. And finally, Your Honor. Inside are photographs chronicling 32 years of milestones: kindergarten, middle school, graduation, honor roll, high school, valedictorian speech, law school commencement. Judge Avery leans forward. The plaintiff is missing from every image. Your Honor, Father murmurs, shifting in his seat, eyes fixed on his polished Italian leather shoes. Mother's fingernails, painted the same deep shade as her lipstick, tap rhythmically against the table. During the brief recess that follows, I slip out to the courthouse garden where hibiscus flowers blaze crimson against the pale limestone walls. Grandmother June once planted hibiscus everywhere, in flower beds, patio pots, even a small clay planter on the kitchen windowsill. Life keeps blooming even after someone leaves, she used to say as she watered them. No resentment. Only quiet wisdom from a woman who'd watched her only daughter walk away from her child. I brush a finger over the velvet petals of a nearby bloom, and suddenly I'm 7 again, standing on a kitchen chair, helping grandmother measure ingredients for her famous lemon poppy seed bundt cake. Every Saturday morning, the same ritual: sifting flour, cracking eggs, lemon zest sharp under my fingernails. Baking is about patience and precision, she'd say, her silver-streaked hair falling over her forehead as she demonstrated how to fold, not stir, the batter. Just like life. Mackenzie. When court resumes, something settles inside me. This isn't about defending an inheritance, it's about honoring their memory. The people who stayed. The ones who chose me, every day, while my parents chose absence. You okay? Amelia whispers, noticing my straightened posture. Yes, I'm ready. You look just like your grandfather up there. That afternoon brings a procession of witnesses who knew us and who knew the truth. Doris Taylor, the court clerk who worked alongside my grandfather for 30 years, recalls his sharp mind and unwavering integrity. Dr. Reynolds testifies to his clear cognition until his final days. Then Martha Wilson takes the stand, our housekeeper for 25 years. Her silver hair gathered into the same tidy bun she wore when she bandaged my scraped knees or taught me to iron grandfather's shirts on Sundays. Without fail, Martha says, her voice calm despite Dale's pointed questioning, Miss Mackenzie spent every Sunday dinner with Judge Cole. Even after moving to her own apartment, even during law school exams, she'd cook his favorite pot roast and set the table with Mrs. Cole's good china. And after June Cole passed? Amelia asks softly. Martha's eyes meet mine. Miss Mackenzie never missed a Sunday. Not once in 10 years did she bring fresh flowers for the table, hibiscus when they were in season, her grandmother's favorite. I blink rapidly, fighting tears in the gallery behind me. Colleagues from the prosecutor's office fill 3 rows, some visibly unwell but still present. The same people who've seen me dismantle financial fraud and white-collar crime now watch as I defend the most personal case of my life. Dale rises for cross-examination. Martha, isn't it true that Mackenzie Wright controlled who had access to Judge Cole in his final years? No, sir, that isn't true, Martha replies without hesitation. Judge Cole made his own decisions until the day he passed. Miss Mackenzie always respected his wishes. A flicker of frustration flashes across Dale's face. Motion to strike the witness's personal opinions from the record. Denied, Judge Avery responds almost too quickly. The witness is describing observed behavior, not opinion. Dale changes course. Your Honor, we move to dismiss Judge Cole's personal journals as hearsay evidence. Judge Avery removes his glasses, polishing them carefully with a handkerchief. Motion denied. The journals are contemporaneous documentation and remain admissible. Mother's jaw tightens. Father leans in to whisper something, his eyes flicking toward the exit. The first flickers of victory stir in my chest as Judge Avery admits into evidence my grandfather's final handwritten letter, the one he wrote a week before his heart attack. The one where he explained why he changed his will 10 years earlier. This decision was not made in haste or confusion, he wrote. It was made with clarity. After observing for 20 years, which family member truly embodied that word? Mother's. Hands tremble slightly as she accepts a glass of water from Dale, the first time she's done so since the proceedings began. For the first time, I allow myself to believe that truth might actually triumph over the fiction my parents have so carefully built. And somewhere amid the ledgers, letters, and decades of documented neglect, I uncover something unexpected. The strength I carry comes from knowing exactly who I am and where I belong, not because of the blood in my veins, but because of the values that shape my heart. The Charleston Post and Courier lands on my doorstep with a hollow thud that echoes through the quiet hallway. I don't have to open it to guess what's inside. My mother's face, perfectly composed in tragic beauty, stares up from below the fold. Family estate battle divides Charleston legacy, the headline blares. I make myself read the article. Celeste paints a portrait of a daughter cruelly estranged from her father's affection. She cries about a campaign designed to turn Franklin Cole against his only child. Not a single word about the 4-month-old baby she left on her parents' porch. Before I reach the end, the phone rings. Mackenzie Wright. The voice on the other end is rough, accusing. You should be ashamed, stealing from your own mother. The line goes dead. 3 more calls follow, different strangers, same venom, all taken in by Celeste's theater of tears. By noon, my office voicemail is full. Messages from people questioning my integrity. The manipulative attorney who preyed on her elderly grandfather. The ungrateful daughter denying her parents their rightful inheritance. Their words burrow beneath my skin like splinters. I stand at the window of my grandfather's study, watching rain streak down panes of century-old glass. The garden below lies dormant, grandmother's prized hibiscus waiting for spring. My reflection meets me in the glass, shoulders slightly bowed, a stance Grandmother June would have corrected with a soft touch. Stand tall, Mackenzie, she'd say, like my hibiscus. On the bookshelf behind me, leather-bound journals line up like sentinels. I trace their spines until my fingers rest on one wrapped in green cloth, June's gardening journal. I haven't opened it since her passing 3 years ago. Inside, her graceful handwriting lists planting schedules and soil notes, but in the margins, something more intimate. Lessons about life, written as though she were speaking to her flowers. Hibiscus survive winter when everything appears dead, she wrote beside a sketch of crimson blooms. The strongest flowers emerge from the coldest winters. Remember this, Mackenzie. Seeing my name in her handwriting loosens something in my chest. On the desk rests another keepsake, a leather notebook my grandfather gave me at law school graduation. Inside the cover, his precise penmanship reads, "Ethics aren't situational, Mackenzie. They're the foundation upon which justice stands. I remember watching him on the bench during my summer internship, the moment I knew I belonged in law. A defendant had accused him of bias. Franklin Cole hadn't flinched. Justice isn't revenge, he told me afterward. It's the restoration of truth. The word truth settles in my mind like a stone sinking into still water. I will not dishonor their memory with bitterness." I square my shoulders and lift my chin, stand tall like the hibiscus. The courthouse hums with anticipation. The next morning, my mother takes the stand, dabbing at well-rehearsed tears with the precision of an actress. Her cashmere sweater, robins, egg blue, not navy, perfectly flatters her complexion. "My husband abandoned me," she testifies, voice breaking on cue. "When Mackenzie was born, it was as if I disappeared." Richard Dale leads her through the performance with care. "And your relationship with your daughter?" "I tried," Celeste whispers, but Franklin and June wouldn't allow it. They turned her against me. The gallery murmurs in sympathy. I keep my expression steady, fingers brushing the smooth pearl earring in my pocket, a grounding touch from my grandmother. Amelia rises for cross-examination, a neat stack of papers in hand. Her Georgia drawl deepens slightly, a calculated move to soften the room before the blow. Mrs. Wright, you testified that Judge Cole abandoned you. Is that correct? Yes. Celeste dabs her eyes. I have here visitation logs from 1993 through 2008. Amelia steps forward. Your signature appears 10 times in 15 years. 10 visits to your daughter in 15 years? Would you call that maternal devotion? Celeste's jaw tightens. Those records don't reflect the times I was turned away. Interesting, Amelia replies coolly, pulling another document. I also have emails from your account to Judge Cole. May 12, 2001. Can't make Mackenzie's recital. Please send money for the Manhattan apartment deposit. December 23, 2006. Christmas visit impossible. Aspen rental doesn't allow children. September 8, 2012. Graduation conflicts with our Mediterranean cruise. Each date lands like a blow in the charged silence. Someone behind me gasps. And this, Amelia continues, a handwritten note from Judge Cole. She projects it on the screen. Franklin's neat script reads, Broken promises again. Mackenzie waited by the window until midnight. How do I explain this time? The tears streaming down my mother's face are genuine now, but fueled by anger, not remorse. The atmosphere in the courtroom shifts, a silent tide turning. Next, Martha Pullman takes the stand, my grandmother's housekeeper for 3 decades, a familiar presence at every Sunday dinner of my childhood. Her gray hair is neatly coiled into a bun, her hands folded calmly in her lap. After Mrs. Cole passed, Martha begins, Mackenzie never missed a Sunday. Even during law school finals, she'd drive from Duke on Saturday night, help the judge with his medications, attend church with him Sunday morning, and make dinner before heading back. And the plaintiffs? Amelia asks. Mrs. Wright called twice a year, maybe, Martha says firmly. Always about money. She pauses. Mr. Wright? Never once heard his voice in that house. Neighbors follow, the Petersons, who testify they often saw me shoveling Franklin's walkway after every snowfall. Dr. Williams, the same man who taught me to drive in the church parking lot after my parents forgot my 16th birthday. Professor Harmon, who guided my law school thesis while I cared for my grandfather recovering from hip surgery. Judge Avery's pen moves steadily across his legal pad, pausing only when my mentor from Duke Law takes the stand. Mackenzie maintained her standing in class by working through weekends, visiting her grandfather every Sunday without fail. Professor Montgomery testifies next. While others spent spring break on beaches, she drove to Charleston to help Judge Cole with his taxes. Did she ever discuss inheritance expectations with you? Amelia asks. Never, not once, she replies. Franklin's financial advisor confirms. I was never approached about the estate, nor did she ever request funds beyond tuition. With each testimony, the narrative shifts. The courtroom's sympathy drains from Celeste's performance and begins aligning with the documented truth. 30 years of quiet perseverance. During recess, Amelia rests a hand on my shoulder. Gavin's cross-examination is next. Ready? I nod, glancing across the room at my father. He keeps straightening his tie, eyes fixed anywhere but on my mother, whose earlier composure has collapsed into barely contained fury. Gavin Wright takes the stand. His tailored suit and styled hair exude confidence, but his fingers drum restlessly against his thigh. Amelia approaches with calm precision. Mr. Wright, did you attend your daughter's graduation? A long silence. He clears his throat. Which one? The gallery stirs. Someone coughs to hide a laugh. Any of them, Amelia says evenly. High school? College? Law school? I was traveling for business. The same refrain from my childhood. Where did Mackenzie attend law school, Mr. Wright? His eyes flick to Celeste, who refuses to look at him. I believe it was the University of South Carolina. It was Duke University Law School. Amelia corrects, her tone cool. She graduated summa cum laude. Have you ever visited your daughter's home? The home you're now suing her for? He hesitates. Not recently. Have you ever visited it? Another painful pause. No, murmurs ripple through the courtroom. Judge Avery taps his gavel once, a soft but clear warning. My father's detachment from my life becomes painfully clear with every question. He doesn't know my address. Can't name my closest friends. Doesn't recall a single birthday gift he might have sent. Across the aisle, my mother's mask continues to crack, her knuckles whitening around her purse strap. The performance is collapsing. The audience can see through it now. I sit tall, shoulders squared. In my mind, I hear Grandmother June's voice, stand tall like the hibiscus. The strongest flowers bloom after the coldest winters. As the day winds down, Richard Dale stands with unexpected vigor. Your Honor, we call Dr. William Barrett to the stand. An unfamiliar man steps forward, in his mid-60s, silver hair, wire-rimmed glasses. My stomach tightens. Who is that? I whisper to Amelia. Not on our witness list. She murmurs back while riffling through papers. Dale identifies him as Judge Cole's former physician, saying he has crucial testimony about our grandfather's mental state in his final years. Judge Avery frowns. This witness wasn't on your list, counselor. Recent discovery, Your Honor, Dale replies. Critical to showing Judge Cole's vulnerability to undue influence. Amelia objects at once, but Judge Avery permits limited testimony in the interest of a full examination. As the man takes the witness chair, I notice a detail, a nervous habit of pushing his glasses up with his middle finger instead of his index. The same odd gesture I'd seen years ago at a medical conference where grandfather had spoken. Don't worry, Amelia whispers as Dale approaches his surprise witness. Trust the preparation. I nod and watch Dr. Barrett's hands. He adjusts his glasses again, middle finger at the bridge, and a memory surfaces. Grandmother June's voice, gentle but firm. Remember, Mackenzie, truth doesn't need rehearsal. I lean forward, studying the doctor's nervous mannerisms as he begins to discuss memory problems and suggestibility in my grandfather's final years. There's another familiarity I can't place. Judge Avery narrows his eyes at the new witness. The courtroom holds its breath, and suddenly I know exactly who this man really is. Silence falls as Dr. Barrett straightens his bow tie, his fingers trembling slightly on the polished wood of the stand. Mother smiles with that particular tilt of her mouth I've known since childhood, the expression that signals she expects to get her way. Dr. Barrett, how long did you treat Judge Franklin Cole? Dale asks, his voice practiced, sincere in tone but hollow to anyone who spent time in courtrooms. Barrett clears his throat. I saw Judge Cole twice in the months before his passing. And during those visits, did you observe any signs that might indicate the judge was being manipulated? My muscles knot. Amelia slips her hand over mine beneath the table, a quiet reminder to stay calm. Objection. Calls for speculation, she states, her Georgia drawl sharpening when she's annoyed. Judge Avery's silver brows pull together. I'll allow it, but tread carefully, Mr. Dale. Barrett speaks eagerly. Yes, I observed several troubling signs. The judge appeared confused about his finances. He mentioned feeling pressured about decisions concerning his estate. From the corner of my eye, I notice Mother's dramatic nod, her handkerchief making yet another appearance. Amelia rises slowly, fastening her jacket with composed precision. Dr. Barrett, you stated you met with Judge Cole twice. Could you please specify the dates of those visits? March 12th and April 3rd of last year. And what was your relationship with Judge Cole prior to those appointments? Barrett shifts uneasily. I hadn't treated him before. So, you weren't his primary physician? No. When did you open your practice in Charleston, Dr. Barrett? He swallows hard. 8 months ago. And who did you establish this practice with? Dale stands abruptly. Objection. Relevance. Goes to credibility, Your Honor, Amelia replies smoothly. Overruled. The witness will answer, Judge Avery says. Barrett's collar suddenly looks too tight. Dr. Thomas Reynolds. And what is Dr. Reynolds' relationship to Celeste Wright? A ripple moves through the courtroom. Barrett's eyes flick toward Mother before he answers, He's her cousin. Amelia nods, retrieving a folder from her table. Your Honor, I'd like to enter Exhibit 43 into evidence. Judge Cole's full medical records from his primary physician of 30 years, Dr. Harold Simmons. Dale leaps to his feet. Objection! Those records weren't produced during discovery. They absolutely were. Your Honor, page 211 of our disclosure packet, submitted 2 months ago. Amelia doesn't even glance his way. Judge Avery flips through the folder. Objection overruled. The records were properly disclosed. Amelia approaches Barrett with a stack of papers. These show that Dr. Simmons conducted a full cognitive evaluation of Judge Cole just 1 week after your second appointment. Please read his conclusion on page 4, paragraph 2. Barrett's voice trembles slightly. Cognitive function remains sharp and consistent with prior assessments. The patient shows excellent recall of both recent and distant events. No indication of confusion or impaired decision-making. Thank you, Dr. Barrett. Amelia places another page before him. Now, could you explain this prescription you wrote during your second visit? Barrett's face pales. It's for a mild sedative. Was this medication requested by Judge Cole? Not exactly. Then who suggested it, Dr. Barrett? His eyes flick once more toward Mother. Mrs. Wright was concerned about her father's anxiety. And yet, Amelia continues, Dr. Simmons' notes show Judge Cole reported no anxiety symptoms during his appointment the following week. She turns to the bench. Interesting. No further questions for this witness, Your Honor. Dale rises for redirect, but Barrett's testimony has already collapsed beyond repair. Every question only makes the damage worse. The mother scribbles frantic notes, shoving them toward Dale, who barely glances at them before exhaling in defeat. The father leans toward her, whispering something that turns her face a furious red. The cracks are widening, each now blaming the other for the unraveling case. The defense calls Mackenzie. Of course they do. Amelia announces that taking the stand feels surreal, as if she's floating outside her own body. I adjust the collar of my blouse, thankful for the extra starch Martha insisted on this morning. That judge needs to see you're solid as bedrock, she'd said while pressing it. After I'm sworn in, Amelia steps forward. Miss Wright, there have been suggestions that you manipulated your grandfather for financial gain. If that were true, wouldn't there have been easier ways to secure his money than spending every Sunday for 30 years at his dinner table? My voice is steadier than I expect. I'm a prosecutor with a comfortable income. If I'd wanted his money, I wouldn't have devoted 3 decades of Sundays to hearing stories about his cases from 1972. Soft laughter ripples through the courtroom. Did that Sunday dinner tradition change after your grandmother passed away? Amelia asks. I swallow past the sudden tightness in my throat. Only in one way. I started bringing the lemon poppy seed cake instead of her. Everything else stayed the same. 6 o'clock sharp. Classical music on the radio. Grandfather's stories. And why did you keep up the tradition? The answer's simple, I say quietly. I stayed because I loved him. Dale rises for cross-examination, his confidence noticeably dimmed since that morning. Miss Wright, isn't it true that you influenced your grandfather's decision to amend his will after your grandmother's death? No, I reply evenly. His will was changed 10 years ago, while my grandmother was still alive. They made that decision together. But you discussed the will with him? He discussed it with me, I correct. He was a judge for 40 years, Mr. Dale. No one ever persuaded Franklin Cole to do anything he didn't believe was right. Dale tries another angle. You were aware of the will's contents? Yes, I say. Grandfather believed in transparency. He showed it to me and explained that he and grandmother had decided to leave their estate to me, rather than to parents who chose not to be part of my life. From the gallery, quiet murmurs ripple through the crowd. Judge Avery doesn't move to silence them. My boss, District Attorney Robert Langston, takes the stand next, his broad frame making the witness chair appear almost comically small. I've supervised Mackenzie Wright for 6 years, he begins firmly. She's prosecuted financial crimes worth millions. If there's anyone in my office I'd trust with my own estate. He glances toward me. It would be her. Her integrity is beyond reproach. Judge Avery nods thoughtfully, then speaks from the bench. I've known Franklin Cole for nearly 3 decades. He mentored me when I first joined the judiciary. In all that time, I never saw him make a decision that wasn't deliberate, ethical, and fair. Dale's objection comes too late, and without conviction. The judge merely notes it for the record and moves on. During the afternoon recess, I step into the hallway for a breath of air and overhear my father's low, tense voice near the water fountain. "You pushed this too far, Celeste. Barrett was a disaster," Mother hisses back. "How was I supposed to know they'd have those records?" Thomas said your family talks big but never delivers." She spots me then and falls silent, tugging Father away by his sleeve. When court resumes, Richard Dale requests a brief conference with Amelia. They speak quietly near the bench before returning to their tables. Amelia leans close to me. "They're offering to drop the suit if you agree to cover their legal fees." I shake my head once. "No," she gives a small approving nod. "Good. That's exactly what I told them." Mother sits rigidly at the plaintiff's table, though the cracks in her composure are widening. Her cousin, seated a few rows behind, stares at the floor rather than meeting Barrett's questioning gaze from across the room. Judge Avery clears his throat. "Based on the testimony and evidence presented, I'm prepared to issue my ruling unless counsel has additional witnesses." Dale rises. "No additional witnesses, Your Honor." "Very well." The judge's gaze sweeps the room before settling on me. "Sometimes the law is complicated. This case is not. The evidence clearly shows that Franklin Cole was of sound mind when he executed his will, and that his intentions were both deliberate and informed." He turns toward my parents. "The plaintiffs have failed to present any credible proof of undue influence or diminished capacity. The claim is dismissed with prejudice." The gavel falls, sharp and final. Mother's face twists with fury, but it's Father who surprises me. For a fleeting moment, something like relief flickers across his features before the mask of indignation returns. As people file out of the courtroom, Amelia gathers her papers. "Your grandfather would be proud," she says softly. I nod, unable to speak past the knot tightening in my throat. The victory brings no joy, only a quiet vindication, and the assurance that my grandparents' legacy remains unbroken. They stayed when it mattered most. And in honoring their choice today, so did I. Celeste corners me outside the third-floor restroom, her Chanel perfume forming an invisible wall between us. The courthouse corridor stretches empty in both directions, witnesses scattered to their own corners during the 15-minute recess before closing. Arguments, Mackenzie, her voice lacks the rehearsed warmth she uses before juries. "We should talk." I adjust my charcoal suit jacket, a small act of armor against whatever manipulation she's about to attempt. She steps closer, diamond earrings catching the harsh fluorescent light. "You might have the law and the money on your side," she says, "but I have your blood." The word blood hangs between us like an accusation. I think of grandfather's journals, each entry chronicling missed birthdays, broken promises, and the years my mother chose absence over presence. "Would your grandmother want this?" Celeste whispers, her manicured hand hovering just shy of my arm. June believed in family unity. In forgiveness? My throat tightens at the casual use of grandmother's name. Celeste barely knew her own mother in adulthood, visiting less than once a year while I spent nearly 3 decades helping June tend her hibiscus garden every Saturday morning. "We could end this today," she continues, mistaking my silence for uncertainty. "I'm willing to forgive and forget everything, if you just split the inheritance 50-50. "That's fair, isn't it?" Mother and daughter sharing equally. Her eyes, so like mine in shape and color, search my face for a trace of weakness. For the little girl who once waited by the mailbox for cards that never came. "Think about the community," she presses. "Everyone's talking. Pastor Roberts called me yesterday about the tragedy of family division." I almost laugh. Pastor Roberts had called me out of genuine concern. He'd seen me beside grandfather in the 4th pew every Easter Sunday for 30 years, while my parents remained phantom figures in holiday photographs. "The Charleston Post is running a piece next week," Celeste adds. Family against family. "Is that the legacy you want? What about the Cole reputation?" Before I can respond, Richard Dale rounds the corner, leather portfolio in hand, and nods politely at my mother. "Judge Avery will be back in 5 minutes." Celeste's gaze sharpens. Think about it, Mackenzie. Blood matters in this town. It always has. They disappear down the corridor, leaving me alone with the echo of her words and the weight of 32 years of meticulously recorded absence. I push open the bathroom door and face the mirror. Gray eyes, straight nose, firm chin, all features inherited from a woman who treated motherhood like an inconvenience. But there's something else, too. Something June nurtured during quiet Saturday mornings in the garden, teaching me how to transplant hibiscus shoots with patient hands. Life still blossoms, she'd say, even after someone leaves. Now, I see June's steadiness reflected in my own eyes, and I hear my grandfather's voice as clearly as on that final Sunday dinner. Integrity isn't what you claim. Mackenzie, it's what you prove. The bathroom door swings open and Amelia steps in. Our eyes meet in the mirror. They're working on a last-minute settlement offer, she says. I heard, I reply. She studies my expression and gives a small nod. Once you've made your decision, I turn from the mirror, squaring my shoulders the way my grandfather did before rendering a verdict. Truth over peace. Good, Amelia says. Because your grandfather's journals just arrived from his chambers. Judge Avery granted our motion. Dale's objections didn't stand. When we step into the courtroom, the air hums with anticipation. The gallery has filled with Charleston's old guard, eager to witness the final act of our family's public reckoning. I spot familiar faces, neighbors who watched me grow up, colleagues from the courthouse, even Pastor Robert seated quietly in the back with his worn Bible in hand. At the defense table, Celeste and Gavin whisper frantically to Dale as Judge Avery takes the bench. My father's silk tie is slightly askew, his first visible crack since the trial began. Closing arguments, Avery announces, nodding toward Dale. Richard Dale buttons his jacket and steps forward. Your Honor, this case transcends mere legalities. It's about blood. About family, he gestures to the gallery. This community understands that. Charleston tradition has always held family unity above all. You've heard from respected citizens, Pastor Roberts, family friends, even Mackenzie's childhood neighbors, all calling for reconciliation. Dale's voice swells with conviction. Celeste Wright may have erred as a young mother, but who among us hasn't? Should those mistakes condemn her forever? Should a piece of paper outweigh the sacred bond of blood? Judge Avery remains unreadable as Dale ends his impassioned appeal. Tradition and blood over the letter of the law. When Amelia rises, she holds only a single sheet of paper. Your Honor, this case has never been about blood. It's about choice, about who stays when it matters most. She unfolds the paper with care. This letter was discovered in Judge Franklin Cole's desk, dated 2 weeks before his passing. With the court's permission, I'd like to read it. Avery nods, and Amelia begins, her soft Georgia accent carrying through the courtroom. Mackenzie, you inherit not because of blood, but because you stayed. When Sunday dinners became hard for me after June passed, you never missed one. When law school took over your weekends, you studied at my kitchen table. When Celeste and Gavin came asking for money, records show over $845,000 across 22 years. They never once asked about you. End quote. The courtroom falls silent as Amelia continues. A parent isn't defined by biology, but by presence. I choose you as my heir because you chose me as your family. Every Sunday, every holiday, every ordinary day when showing up mattered. She places the letter gently on the exhibit table, then turns to the judge. Evidence, Your Honor, not emotion, must guide this court's decision. The evidence reveals decades of financial support to the plaintiffs alongside their consistent absence. It demonstrates Franklin Cole's sound mind up to his final days, confirmed by medical documentation. And it shows a lifetime of Sundays when Mackenzie Wright stayed, while her parents chose to leave. Amelia turns toward Celeste and Gavin, her tone steady but sharp. What kind of parents sue their own child after abandoning her? What kind of mother preaches family unity after 30 years of absence? The question before this court isn't about bloodlines. It's about the true meaning of family. I feel tears gathering as Amelia returns to her seat beside me. Without looking, she places a tissue in my hand. I grip it tightly but don't use it yet. Judge Avery removes his glasses, polishing them slowly with a handkerchief. The room stays utterly still, breath held, waiting. After reviewing all evidence and testimony presented, he begins, I find the will of the Honorable Franklin Cole to be valid, executed with sound mind and full legal capacity. He replaces his glasses, eyes locking on Celeste and Gavin. The plaintiff's claim is dismissed with prejudice. Furthermore, the plaintiffs are ordered to pay the defendants reasonable attorney fees as permitted under state law for frivolous lawsuits lacking substantial justification. The gavel strikes. Sharp and final. This court is adjourned. Only then do I let the tears fall, not for the inheritance won or the case resolved, but for the truth finally recognized. Family isn't defined by shared blood, but by the ones who walk toward you when everyone else walks away. Celeste and Gavin rise quickly, avoiding my gaze as they follow Dale through the side door. No final words. No acknowledgement. Just departure, the one constant they've ever offered. Amelia squeezes my shoulder once the verdict is read. Your grandfather would be proud, she whispers. I nod, unable to speak past the knot in my throat. The courtroom empties slowly, murmurs fading like retreating tides. I remain seated, watching sunlight spill through tall windows and stretch across the empty plaintiff's table. The inheritance itself matters less than what it represents. Proof that family is defined by those who stay when leaving would be easier. And for 32 years, through scraped knees and law school graduations, through my grandmother's funeral and quiet Sunday dinners, my grandparents stayed. I gather my portfolio with steady hands. Tomorrow I'll visit their graves with fresh hibiscus cuttings from the garden they taught me to tend. Tonight I'll bake my grandmother's lemon poppy seed cake and eat it alone at their kitchen table. Some might call this victory. I call it vindication. And somewhere I know my grandparents would call it justice. The nameplate on my office door still catches me off guard sometimes. The Honorable Mackenzie Wright gleaming in polished brass against dark mahogany. 1 year as South Carolina's youngest state judge hasn't dimmed the quiet pride that rises each morning as I smooth my charcoal skirt and take my seat behind the bench. Scanning the faces before me, another inheritance dispute. Another daughter claiming her mother favored a grandchild unfairly. Another echo of my own story. Different names, same wounds. Objection, Your Honor, Beth's attorney interjects. Prejudicial characterization. Sustained, I reply. Voice even and firm. Franklin's measured cadence living on in mine. Counsel, stick to the facts, not conclusions. Later, I watch the Reynolds women avoid each other's gaze, a cold gulf between them. The same distance I once faced with Celeste. The daughter who left versus the granddaughter who stayed. When court adjourns, I retreat to my chambers where Franklin's legal volumes still line one wall. I trace the worn spines, touchstones of continuity, his penciled notes still marking key passages, small breadcrumbs of wisdom he left behind. My phone buzzes with Martha's weekly message, hibiscus blooming like crazy. Bring home cuttings. Martha refused to retire after Franklin passed. This house needs people who remember, she said. And she's still there, dusting the photographs that tell the story of a life lived without Celeste and Gavin. The lemon poppy seed bundt cake waits on my counter every Saturday. Martha still follows. June's recipe with near-religious precision. Some traditions deserve to live on, even when those who began them are gone. I no longer spend energy wondering whether Celeste will call on my birthday. The space once reserved for parental approval has been replaced with something sturdier. A chosen family of courthouse colleagues. Law school friends and neighbors who gather around my table each Sunday, keeping Franklin's dinner tradition alive. Judge Wright, my clerk, appears at the door. Your 4-0 custody hearing is ready. The Anderson case? My chest tightens. A 5-year-old boy caught between warring parents. A father who shows up only when it suits him. I straighten Franklin's fountain pen on my blotter before rising and walking into the courtroom. I study the child's drawings entered as evidence. Stick figures labeled Mommy and Grandma beside a house. No father in sight. Mr. Anderson, I say, meeting his eyes. Children don't remember what we say. They remember who showed up. The words ripple through the room like stones cast into still water. The father's expression shifts, recognition, maybe remorse. Perhaps something will change for this child. That evening, I drive to Magnolia Cemetery as sunset gilds the weathered tombstones. Kneeling between two graves, I place fresh hibiscus blossoms, crimson against pale marble. I kept my promise, I whisper to June's headstone, setting down a slice of lemon cake wrapped in wax paper. I protected what you built. The wind stirs the live oaks overhead, their branches whispering softly. Here, between the people who chose me every day for 32 years, gratitude finally outweighs grief. The Reynolds case ended today, I tell Franklin's grave. The granddaughter inherited. Truth prevailed. A cardinal lands on a nearby branch, vivid red against the dimming sky. I remember June once saying, "When a cardinal visits, someone you love is checking in." I rise, brushing grass from my skirt. Their legacy lives on, not only in property or possessions, but in every fair ruling, every child safeguarded, every truth upheld. Family is who stays, I whisper and walk toward home. Subscribe.